We are really thrilled. Um, Thank you, Shanaza. We are thrilled and delighted today to be welcoming Wynton Marsalis for this special dialogue. Thank you all for joining. My name is Nell Breyer. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Marshall Scholars, and we have such a terrific conversation lined up with the world-renowned musician Wynton Marsalis, who, as you know, serves as Artistic Director of Jazz at Lincoln Center. He is going to be speaking today about transatlantic history and diplomatic power, the diplomatic power of jazz, in advance of a really exciting concert series in August at the Edinburgh International Festival, which includes both his work All Rise, Duke Ellington's Jazz Symphony, Black, Brown, and Beige, and many other works. And we hope that you will all be attending. I am so thrilled that Emily Springer is able to moderate the discussion today. Emily is a Marshall Scholar from the class of 2025. So a young jazz aficionado. As you may know, the Transatlantic Alliance, which is something that the Marshall Scholarship is sort of born out of, we see as a real linchpin for some of the important values and vibrancy that jazz reflects, including human rights and peace and international dialogue. And we are really thrilled to have Emily help spearhead this conversation. Emily herself is a journalist and a writer and now a scholar based in London. She's been a reporter for WBGO News and a producer for NPR's Jazz Night in America. She is currently studying cultural studies and broadcast journalism at Goldsmiths in the University of London, and her research covers jazz, history, cultural criticism, and the impact of Black American culture on our society. So Emily has received questions from you all in advance, and I'm going to go away and let her introduce Wynton and kick off the conversation. So thank you both for being here, and really excited for what you have to say today.
All right.
Thank you so much, Nell. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Not sure what parts of the world everyone is coming from today, but I'm so glad you could join us. And of course, I will do my best to introduce the man who is Wynton Marsalis. He is incredible, but as we know, he serves as the managing and artistic director of Jazz at Lincoln Center. And with a career spanning over 4.5 decades, Marsalis is known as a world-renowned trumpeter, bandleader, composer, and a leading advocate of American culture. Marsalis launched his career with the legendary Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers in 1980 and quickly grew in popularity throughout the decade. In the summer of 1987, Marsalis created Lincoln Center's first jazz programming. It was the groundwork for what he, along with key groups of the music supporters, would later establish as Jazz at Lincoln Center. Marsalis is a recipient of the National Medal of the Arts, the National Humanities Medal, and is a UN Messenger for Peace, among many other accolades. He's composed over 600 original songs and movements, released over 130 studio recordings, and performed in 65 countries across the globe. So welcome, Mr. Marsalis. I'm so glad that you joined me today. And before I officially start with some of the questions that I have prepared, I wanted to just share a quick story about when I was first exposed to your music and your talent. And that was when I started playing trumpet in 7th grade. And I was completely overwhelmed by the instrument, which you know is a very difficult one. And I often was very worried about going to band class and messing up and just not really knowing my way around the horn. And the days that I liked the most were days after concerts or when my band director was absent because we got to watch movies. And the one that I remember watching was actually called Marsalis on Music, which upon some research, years later, I found out is a DVD set of four episodes that you made in 1995, where you break down concepts that now as an adult, I think are just so deep for a way that children can understand form, rhythm, and how to practice, which I think we're all still figuring out a little bit. And in prep for the interview, I went back and watched some of these clips and was remarking with my partner that you're just such a wonderful communicator on and off the instrument. And so I'm thrilled to speak with you today and kind of bring it full circle.
Well, thank you very much, Emily, for your over-assessment of me. But I'm glad to know that you're a trumpet player, and I just thank you very much.
Absolutely. So one of I want to start with one of the themes, of course, for the year, which is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And you've consistently shared in your belief that jazz is the ultimate musical metaphor for democracy and the American spirit. And for anyone who might not be kind of familiar with this idea, there's different ways to look at it, but improvisation representing an individual's right to personal expression, and swing as this kind of collective responsibility we have to create a balance for the common good, and then the blues as a way to keep an optimism in difficult times and a giving spirit. And so in this moment right now, 250 years after the founding of our country, when things feel a bit, unstable, I'm curious, in this musical metaphor and in the real world, who do we kind of look for to get us back on track? Like what do you think on that?
I think whenever you get in trouble, you go home. Like it's just if something really bad happens to you, you generally will go to your mama.
Mm.
Now, of course, that's not the case for everyone in the world, but for most of us, some of my age, my mother has passed away, but just the basic fundamental values that you were taught when you were a kid. And the main thing you go to your mother for is a kind of unconditional love and an acceptance, but also not just an acceptance. Someone who will help to revive your ambition for yourself in the case of something personal. In the case of a nation, the mythology of the nation has always been fought over because the actions in the founding of the nation was so far against the Christian ethics that formed a lot of people that came here. But that's only if you look at one. If only if you look at those actions. Let's always remember that there were always other actions, and there was slavery. There was the Underground Railroad. Civil War was two sides fighting against each other, and slaves fighting for themselves and for their own freedom. And there was the possibility of freedom. This is a particularly dark time. We're beset upon by mass corruption in both parties and the type of criminal activity and the celebration of mediocrity that music has been there for 50 or 60 years. So we actually we succumbed to that many years before. And I think the solution is you have to come home. You have to go to fundamental values.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you and what are you about? And that's really the only way.
Right. And I think for me, as someone who obviously is a lover of jazz, is interested in jazz in a very critical way, I do see the way that those kinds of tenets bring back, I don't want to say simplicity, but as you say, a fundamental understanding of working together for a common goal that, someone might improvise in a way that wouldn't be the way you would do it, but how do we support them through this musically? And then that looking at not our real world, but what we're doing as people outside of music, how do we kind of support each other and understand the mythology of our country? And I was really glad you brought that up because jazz, as you've said, is really key in actually building parts of the American mythology. And one of the people whose mythology that you've kind of had a hand in shaping and sharing with the world is, of course, that of Duke Ellington, whose suite Black, Brown, and Beige you'll be performing at Edinburgh for those who are lucky enough to join us there. And the story of that piece, or rather the history around that piece, is quite heavy. And for those who might not be familiar, the piece is three movements, and it was Ellington's effort to tell the story of African Americans at the time, as well as bring attention to racial issues in the country and uplift kind of the understanding of who African Americans were across the board, but especially in these arts. And he performed it for the first time at Carnegie Hall, which was his first performance at Carnegie Hall, to largely mixed but mostly negative, I think, feedback. And
Mostly negative
right,
reviews,
right.
not feedback, but because a lot of musicians loved it, and the
Mm-hmm.
people who, but from a critical standpoint, the thought was that he had overstepped the boundaries that were set for him, and he
Mm-hmm.
had.
Right.
So he violated. He had too much ambition for the
Mm.
music and for himself, and he received negative critical reviews, and they affected him.
Right. So I'm curious, when you are performing this piece, do you feel kind of a responsibility to communicate that context to an audience who might not be familiar with it? And, today in 2026, what do you feel the value is of performing this piece that centers African American history for an international audience?
Well, it's an important history of freedom because, of course, the longest journey to freedom in any population at any time would be a person who was enslaved or someone who comes from that tradition. It's it's not depressing, it's uplifting, and it's not carping for what could have happened, or it's celebratory and it's heroic. It's virtuosic, it's very difficult to play. And you don't have to explain the context, or any people can research it. It's in the music, it's in the DNA of what Duke wrote. And when you write a piece, a masterpiece like that, there's so many relationships in it, the thematic relationships and the sophistication of the harmony and the voicings and the forms and all the implications of it uh, are in music, and they're there for you to check out and study. The most important thing for us to do is to keep playing it,
Mm,
because it's like any important works of art. They speak to a depth of engagement, human engagement, and when we encounter them, they uplift us and show us what's possible, and that could be any masterpiece in any of the arts,
mm,
from paintings that you like to plays people love to see, novels. It doesn't matter. All of the arts are connected in that they use time, form, mythology, and the sorcery of their arts to bring people in closer communion with whatever their concept of God is, and closer to each other.
mhm.
And that's what Duke's music will do.
Right. And I think the engagement, someone had, we collected some questions before um, from the audience who's here, and someone had kind of asked a question about, the pace of our society, the distractions that come up, how people may not be as engaged with this music. And that's something that I'm kind of thinking about. And what you're saying is that, if people are hungry for the information, they'll go and find it. If you're serious about studying music, whether you're playing it or just passionate about it because you love listening to it, you'll find the information. But I guess even for me, as somebody who is serious about that, I guess sometimes I do feel concerned that people aren't as hungry for it anymore, might not be
I
looking
don't
for it.
I don't think they were ever hungry for it. I mean,
Mm,
I'm significantly older than you. I don't remember when it was tons of people clamoring for it. It's when I was
right.
really young. When I was your age, I didn't probably know anybody who wanted to hear it.
Mm,
So to start that in the past, there were these great listeners and people who loved me. I mean, maybe in some golden ages it was like that, but I think it's always a struggle. We come on earth to struggle.
mm,
And you and I have to have something to do. So we get to turn people on to it. And if every time we turn someone on to it, they just automatically liked it, it will give us less to do.
right.
It's like to be a doctor, you need sick people.
Mm,
Not saying people who don't like the music are sick. I'm just saying that the function of many jobs many of us have on earth, when we administer to people, or we minister to people, we can't wish all the symptoms away, because then we don't have
right.
anything to do. So I of course have always my entire life wished more people were into not just the music but any serious art. My father used to have a saying. He was a teacher, a great teacher. He would always say, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him thirsty. So
Mm,
it's but you can spend all your time decrying what people are doing, or the period you live in, or how fast stuff is, or these young people. It's always this kind of stuff is always, or you could go about the business of constructing the world that you would like to see. That's what Duke Ellington was doing when he wrote Black, Brown, and Beige.
mhm,
He didn't just get on the telephone and call everybody and complain about whatever of the many things he didn't like about segregation and the things he had to deal with. He sat down and wrote some music that encompassed the entire American experience, though it is from the Afro-American perspective. It is not solely a thing that's about the Afro-American people. It
mhm,
it, it, it encompasses, it is an American experience.
right. I think to your point about what we do, or at least what I'm trying to do, and what you've done successfully across your career of putting people onto music, or just, kind of introducing them to it, brings me to some questions that I had about your time actually at the very beginning, before Jazz at Lincoln Center was actually a thing, when you were programming these summer series. You were actually 26 years old, which is, I'm almost 26 years old, and that's just a little bit older than your average Marshall. And I just was curious, did you kind of feel a pressure in that moment? I mean, you're young, you've been playing with Blakey since 1980, it's now 1987. And there were so many members of the, or great giants of the music who were still around. And in a lot of the programming in those early years, and when JALC officially started, featured members of Duke Ellington's orchestra. Of course, I feel the need to mention Joe Temperley, who was from Scotland, who was from the UK, was a Barry player with Jazz Lincoln Center, and in Duke Ellington's orchestra for a very long time. So you were featuring these musicians, and I'm just curious, like, what were you thinking about at that time? I know that it was not something that Lincoln Center had done before. I'm sure there might have been people who were like, we don't necessarily need this, but I'm just curious, at 26 with this position, what were you thinking about?
Well, I went on the road with my own band when I was 20. So I was working about 200 gigs a year
Mm-hmm.
from the age of maybe 22 to 20. So then I was 26, but I played many gigs. And it was only three concerts in the summertime. So
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, I didn't even think about it. I didn't know. It wasn't until it got really bad criticism, articles written about it, that I understood, hey, this is important. So because it's somebody, we need to do more of this. You know what I mean? I looked around because it wasn't paying anything. I wanted to do it just for the musicians. I love the music, and I was working now that I look back on it with all women. At that time I didn't think about it. I'm a young guy, and the women were all much older than me, like the age of my mother. So it was Alina Bloomgarden was a lady who worked in visitor services at Lincoln Center, who called me and said, "Would you program these concerts, or could we use your name?" Because she was trying to recreate a spirit of integration that she found at Barry Harris's Jazz Workshop, which was downtown. So of course I was happy to do it. And then there was Darthon Kirk, who was Rasson. Right. So she was at BGO. She was the general manager. So she just hooked us completely up. And then there was Betty Carter, who anytime I called her, she would just do whatever for the music, because Betty Carter didn't necessarily like me personally.
Mm-hmm.
But she taught me a lot. First, I always respected her genius. She was one of the musicians, and the time I was listening to people, almost always, she was the best concert you ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
And she taught a lot of younger musicians, and she had a lot of integrity. And despite whatever she felt about me and what I was doing, she always agreed and would do things for the music, and would do things for no money, and try to raise money and she was fantastic. So in the beginning, it was mainly that, that was the kind of connection that we had. And it was not, if it would not have been for the type of criticism that we received for playing Duke Ellington's music, I wouldn't have focused on it. Then when I saw that, I said, next year we need to do 2 of these concerts. And we put 2 of them on and call the old Ellingtonians and try to, get with them. And it developed like that. And I didn't feel pressure. Like, I didn't look at it that way, because I had come to help the musicians and to play the music. And it was always fraught with a lot of critical anger and, the stuff there was always a problem. I was philosophically, I wasn't safe really for just, it come from an environment, I would speak my mind, and it was not it was a struggle with that. But I knew that I always had the choice to just be quiet, because a lot of times it's just tactics to keep you quiet. So you can't be that angry if you don't want to be quiet, and then you have to deal with a lot of attack. You chose that. You could always give that lunch money up and you'd be okay. You know what I mean? There's always a choice involved. So, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel, musicians loved it. John Lewis called it a miracle. Jerry Mulligan was always saying, man, keep this thing going. Sweet Edison was my mentor from when I was in high school. Clark Terry, they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on. Frank West. So I didn't feel I didn't feel it like that, and it was then eventually when we started to get the program off the ground, it was so many other people working on it, older people, mentors of mine like Albert Murray, Stanley
Mm.
Crouch, were instrumental in kind of the programming and the guidelines of the institution. And then Dizzy, I spoke with him a lot about what to do and what to try to do. So
Mhm.
I had a lot of support.
Right. And I think as someone who grew up with jazz at Lincoln Center existing and knowing what it was and being excited to go there and see shows and it really being developed with, as you said, the advice and support of all of these people, but also with your vision. I was curious kind of what was a hill you were kind of willing to die on in the beginning, like something that you're like, no, this, we have to do this. This is important to the way I want to organize, but also important to the way I want to represent this music. Because I think years in the future, we kind of have this view of like, well, of course, it's jazz at Lincoln Center. It makes sense. But I'm sure in that beginning stage, there might have been something that people were like, I don't know that we want to do this, that you were adamant on.
Well, it wasn't so much our people. I mean, we worked together, young and older people. Like our board was all people much older than me, and they were in great defense of the mission and belief in it. And the chairman of the board of Lincoln Center at that time, George Weissman, loved Charlie Parker.
Mm.
He was a submarine commander in World War II, and he said every time he got off, he would go check Bird out, and he said this is going to get in. So Jack Rudin was one of our big supporters of our first, essentially Ellington education program. He was an infantryman in World War II. He fought in Italy, so it was a certain type of people. Ahmed Erdogan was Atlantic Records. Okay, that was a lot of popular music, and he was not the person of the Erdogan brothers that had the aesthetic taste, but he loved his brother Nesawi, who was the one who knew whether people could play. And ironically, he was one of the staunchest defenders of the need for integrity
Mm.
and of having an orchestra and of building a library and of actually being an institution. Ed Bradley was, I could go through every board member I want, but I loved all of them. And when I
Mm-hmm.
see you and your age and the promise of what you are and the age that I am, when you get above 60, you get a certain type of sentimentality to you that you may not have had your entire life. And the kind of love you have for your younger people and the feeling you have when you see a serious younger person come up and you know how difficult this road is. And
Mm.
to see you with your achievement and how clear you are with what you're saying and what you're doing, I'm filled with so much respect and love. And that's how the older musicians, by and large, treated me.
Mm.
They loved me and they had respect for me. And they would, if I called them, they would do what we needed to do. So also true at our board. My experience was not negative at all with the people I worked with. It was
Mm.
unbelievably positive and embracing. And still today, I could walk into an office and see some of my 80-something-year-old people still there. They still, man, we could do this. I don't agree that you said that. Or, it's just that they have that type of passion and love for it. In our country, we disrespect older people, and it forces the older people to cling to positions they shouldn't be in.
Mm.
So I'm stepping down next year to make room for other voices and other people because I have confidence in younger people. I'm
Right.
confident that they're not just going to necessarily bring foolishness in here because they've been sold foolishness through the whole youth culture and pop culture and rock and roll culture. That was like a generation worth of value that you're trying to squeeze 3 and 4 generations out of it. That the idea of segregating yourself from your older people and that you're hipper than them and you know everything, that's a one generation proposition.
Mm.
And I find young people that are very serious, like you. And I'm proud of them. And I am. I'm saying it without because I've taught so many younger people, and I'm so proud of all the brilliance I've encountered with younger people. I love my students at Juilliard. I always tell them, boy, you're giving me extra life. But when I'm messing with them, I say, y'all supposed to make me feel old at this room. I feel like I'm 15. Whenever I'm trying to get them to play more than what they're playing, I say, I
Mm.
can pull my own up. I don't feel like an old man. I feel like I'm 13, I'm 12. Send me into retirement. But when they're playing good, I always say, y'all are, y'all giving me more years of life. And
mm,
for my lady students and all my students, I talk about everything, race, gender. I talk about it.
mhm,
I don't. My white students, I tell them I don't want to ever see y'all anywhere acting like y'all don't know more about this music than some people you're talking to because of the color of their skin.
mm,
To my ladies, my main thing to them is to take leadership positions and take charge.
mhm.
Like blow people off of bandstands. That's what we do in jazz. Jump
Right.
on people. Like it's aggressive in a music way. It's sweet. It's
Mhm.
not like you're playing a horn. You're not gonna shoot anybody, but make
Right.
them know, hey, this is serious what I'm dealing with. I'm a serious person. I take myself seriously. And we can joke around and play and have a good time, but you study, you work, you practice, be serious.
Right.
When I was young, it was always, why are you reading those books? Or, don't be serious. Or what about the clown show? Or be a part of bringing the minstrel show back through hip hop, or calling people names, or any, whatever. All the things I fought against, so many things. And a lot of them seem like losing battles at this point, but they have to be fought forever. You have to always get out on that ledge and fight for human beings' uh, right to not be a part of groupthink and just be exploited. And you have to fight if you have the consciousness for it.
Mhm.
Everybody does not have that, and you have to say no. This is not no. This is not what we're gonna do.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, I remember once with my son, who's now in his early 30s. His then he was, I don't know, he was 7 or 6, and his sister was at 10 or 11. So I was trying to act. I was acting like I was going to give him a beer. Of course, I was not going to give him a beer, but his sister was looking at it like, is this guy really going to? So I kept, and then when she thought I really was going to do it, she said, no, no, you can't do that. You can't, don't do that. And I started laughing. I said, see, that's what it takes out here.
Mm,
Like, you have to, this is a period of deep struggle. So we got to bring those angels out.
mm.
And I
Yeah.
mean,
And
that's just how it is.
I do think that, being a part of a jazz community does or can help people build those skills. And when you were talking about the generations and being able to, I do think it's very rare in our society now. Like many of my friends don't have friendships or relationships with older people in their life unless it's their immediate family or maybe
Right.
someone they work with. And playing music, growing up, being a part of a jazz community, having friends who are musicians, having mentors that are musicians, or just work in this field, you learn how to communicate what you're thinking about. You learn so much from them. You learn when not to say anything, as you said, like you learn
Right.
what's worth just, okay, this
Right.
is an elder and I'm going to keep it moving and I'm not going to, but one thing I really admired about what you said too, though, is believing um, in the leaders of tomorrow. And I really appreciated an interview that you gave a few months ago on CBS This Morning, where you basically said what you just said now, that like there is a time when we have to go to the next generation of people, and we have
Right.
to trust that we did right by them enough that they know what to do. And so marshals are in a very unique position. Being a leader is a prerequisite for doing the Marshall Scholarship. They ask you specifically, how are you a leader? Tell us, write about it. Tell us why you're a leader, and then go and prove that you are a leader. And you talked about integrity as one of those characteristics that are integral to doing that. But I was curious, what are some of the qualities other than that you look for in future musical leaders, and maybe ways they might overlap with marshals? And I bring this up because there's very clearly a difference in someone who's talented. They can play the changes, they can show up to the gig, they can do it, like they can play the music really well, versus someone who can carry it somewhere, can see somebody who's a marshal who works in this field and think, we can work together doing this, like someone who's really taking it to a level um which is beyond just being serious about the shed of the music, and seeing it as something that is a cultural phenomenon that we have to work through.
Right. Well, many times those people are not people who can play. So I think we all are part of an ecosystem. And I think that we try to get the entire ecosystem to feel good and get all of our musicians. You don't have to be John Coltrane to be of great service to whatever you're doing. You don't have
Mm,
to, you don't have to be as hierarchical. I feel like just a humanity is an important thing to have. And because you're a jazz musician, a openness to others and other ways of doing things because you're constantly improvising with other people who may not think like you, are not dogma. And I think also just a soulfulness. You got to soul is a very important quality, and that means that when you come somewhere, you leave people better than you found them.
mm,
That's very important.
yeah. I think about it a lot because the unique position of being a marshal, studying in another country, and also getting to interface with students from across the US who are just brilliant and be a part of um, a group of people going back, decades at this point that have done such incredible things. And I obviously have a passion for jazz and music, and I know people who have a passion for robots or different things, but it's something that I really consider a lot. Building these overlapping skill sets and being able to identify each other and say, you're someone who works in marketing, which is different than what I do. But how can we, work together on a project to kind of carry this forward? And I think for a lot of people, speaking more specifically to the jazz world now, I think we are looking around like, okay, who's it gonna be? Who's gonna step up? Like, who's gonna help us? And I don't know that that's the right mentality, right? I don't know that the mentality needs to be like, there's gonna be a person and they're gonna come along and they're gonna do. I think it is more than we think, at least maybe in my generation, like we need to just get together and do things that support the music we care about, and not look for a singular figure. And so I really do appreciate the comments on like kind of how to do that or what to look for. And that specifically, not all those people can play. Not all those people need to play. They can
Yeah, I
play
think.
places.
I, yeah, I think we're all connected in the world. It's just you just do the best you can do. There are a lot of people you're going to find that will be great people. So the
Mm-hmm.
less you think about what the broader your definition is of human beings' greatness, the more great people you're going to find.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can only do one thing. Some people can only make good bread, or some people can only make you laugh, or some. I mean, we all are different. We all have, but we're all out here, and there's a lot of us, and we're everywhere. And if you look around, just in any room you're in, and you think everything in here that's not a tree or some human being did this. All the
Mm-hmm.
wiring, all the plumbing, all the books, all the human beings are something. Like we have and the kind of collective creativity when it's so vast and that's things we can see. We don't even talk about the collective creativity that goes on in people's minds and the way you think of somebody and they call you. Like it's so much goes on that the more you can purify your thinking and your understanding of how open the world is, and it's not hierarchical like we think.
Mm-hmm.
We think of it one way, but it's not like that.
Right.
That's why somebody may have a lot of money, but they're not necessarily happy than somebody who doesn't have anything. Now they have a better chance to be happy if they're not starving. But
Mm-hmm.
you're going to meet a lot of people. I think jazz is a collective music, and I think in the next generations, the beauty of the music and the difficulty of the music is that it's virtuosic music. And any of these musics that have development sections that have virtuosos that require you to learn something, listen to them, to delve into a mythology that you may not be aware of or comfortable with, that require patience and time. There's always kind of be less, and especially with music being such a popular commercial product that now it's just mass produced and it's people are not even in the same room when they play, and uh, artificial intelligence is playing most of the parts, an algorithm is telling the bass lines, and 80 people write one song. That you listen to the song, you think, damn, it took 80 people to write that. But it's the corruptions are always a part of things, and
Mhm.
to dwell on the corruption all the time of something is. I remember I was complaining to John Lewis, who was the John Lewis was the artistic director of the Modern Jazz Quartet,
Yeah.
not the congressman. I was complaining to him about the bad reviews I had, and he was listening to it. I guess he was like my age, and I was a little older than you. He listened, he said, okay, when I finished, we were supposed to be rehearsing. He said, okay. He said, even complaining about bad reviews given to oneself is a form of egotism.
Mm.
Let's rehearse. Right? So let's do something. You came in lunch. Let's rehearse some music, man.
Mhm.
Okay, you got a bad review. You're not the first person and you're not the last. We don't want to dwell on you that long.
Mm.
So I would call him and I would say, Mr. Lewis, always in the daytime, his wife Mariana, she played harpsichord too. They were both keyboard players. And I mean, they had a deep kind of love for each other. And I was talking about music, but I would sit in the house with them and noon and rehearse. I would say, Mr. Lewis, you have time for me today? That was always my question, to see if I could go to his house. He lived on East End in 80 something. And he would always say, for you, I have some time. For the music, I have all the time in the world.
Mm.
And it's just the larger objectives always put you in the ocean. And once you get in that ocean, you realize there's a lot of fish out here,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
And the beauty a lot of times is just your participation and your action to act on. Which maybe you're right, quote unquote, or wrong, but just to act in a collective action is always more powerful even than a singular action. We tend to believe very much in the hero, like one person doing something. I'm less of a believer in that.
Mm.
I believe in the coalition and getting people to go along and to kind of find a kind of common ground.
Yeah.
It's I look at all the most successful predators. At one point, I would study all of them, like Genghis Khan and Julius Caesar and Napoleon. I would study their battle plans, what they wanted to do. And I started to say, what if you were the opposite of them? If you
Mm.
wanted to do the exact opposite of what they wanted to do, and you could be successful at that. That's probably harder than just killing people.
Yeah. And I think too, like the coalition, the ecosystems that you mentioned before is something that, like I said, I think about a lot as someone who has no interest in playing music professionally. Trumpet is very difficult, as you
Come
know.
on now. Come on.
I it's better that I put the horn down. It's
Come
much
on
better.
now. Keep that
But
on. Keep that horn in there.
oh gosh.
Don't let that horn go.
But I found for myself, even in just the exploration of the music, that writing is something that I've really had an affinity towards doing, but also reading liner notes, books. You
Hey,
mentioned,
we need you.
well,
We
that's my
need you
next
out here.
question. That's my
Boy, we
next
need you.
question.
Oh, but we need you so bad. I'm getting ready to
Oh,
start crying. We need you.
oh
I
no.
actually had a random thought about that in you earlier when we first started talking. I said, what
Yeah.
is we need you.
Well, that was my question because I'm looking around too, kind of like, oh, we're not doing it in a way. And you mentioned Albert Murray. You mentioned Stanley Crouch. Of course, you had a relationship too with Phil Schaap. There's so many.
Oh
There's
man, that was my absolute man. That was more than a relationship. Oh, and when he passed away, but it was heartbreaking.
yeah. I mean, this is a side note from the question, but not too long ago, I was in front of a room full of like students who are undergrads studying jazz, and I was like, "Do you know who Phil Schaap is?" Nobody knew. I couldn't believe it, and I think it's a slightly generational thing, right? Because I listened to KCR and when he was still on KCR, so that's how I, of course, knew him. And I was like, "So you guys are gonna go and you're gonna listen to Bird Flight, and that's your homework today."
Right.
And
We need you. We need
you're
you
the
out
people
here.
who will love it. You will
Right.
love Bird Flight. You are listening. You will love it. I promise. Just listen to it. You're gonna love it. But anyway, I guess my question, which
I
I
wish I could tell him that. I would, because I was always teasing him, because he was so serious. I would say, man, I talked to Emily today. she was recommending people here. You talk through 2 hours they play 5 minutes of music on Bird Flight. And he would say, well, that's because she's better than she wants to know something about music. And all you're interested in doing is, oh, I loved him. That was my man. Yeah.
Just a force. I mean,
Oh, yeah. Oh, he was something. Photographic memory.
it's,
You
and
couldn't
that's what
believe a person like him was alive. I would always tell him if you put him in a movie, people would say you're lying. The
right,
guy
because
could, yeah. Go
it
ahead.
just, I mean, it's almost overwhelming. Like, how do you know? Like, how do you, when you hear him speak about music or write about me, it's like, how do you know all these things? But my original question was going to be about how I, of course, admire all of these writers, and the canon is much larger than the people that I mentioned, and you write as well, and are amazing storyteller, amazing writer. And I was going to ask if there are any writers today who are writing about jazz that you're interested in, or maybe that are coming up that you are like, this is something to pay attention to, because I wrote my first set of liner notes recently, which was something I was really excited to do. And I thought to myself, like, I'm glad someone asked me to do this, but who else is doing this besides musicians? Who are people who are not necessarily positioned in that way that might be doing the work?
Not I wish I could be, but I don't really like a lot of what they write, to
Mm,
be honest. But I also don't know. I don't. It was always kind of mediocre,
mm-hmm.
and it's just I don't really know who I would recommend to. There's a couple of pedestrian writers, who they have, but it's not like in the old days where you had a lot of them, like
Right.
it's now it's I don't even.
Criticism, anyway.
Yeah, and it was also they knew of mythology and that, whatever. Of course, I don't know. I think we need you. I mean, I'm talking to you specifically. I'm
Okay.
not joking, but I'm not joking. But we're talking out, but I'm so serious
Yeah.
about it. With the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation, we're going to start a program for writers. So get in touch with us
Yeah,
because we need young
absolutely.
people. We need the leadership of young people, and we need a renaissance in that because the writing is so bad. I feel bad for my students. Sometimes I read stuff that's written about them. I just think, ugh, man, I
Yeah.
feel bad. I feel bad for y'all. Like this, it's not because it's a bad review, even when it's good. It's just that there's not an interest in what y'all are playing.
Right.
So I always ask them, were you interviewed about this? And I would say, in my years of being out here, I'm 64 now, and I've only one time have I ever had a writer ask me to see a score or ask me what I was doing in any piece. And it was strange. So I was asking him near the end, well, why are you ask me questions about music? It's unusual. And that was 30 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. And when the article came out, he was trying to prove that I committed fraud to win a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, it's just, I just had to laugh. I said, well, one time I'm actually asked about music and somebody trying to prove I committed fraud. He was asking me how many changes did I make. And I'm the type of person who makes a lot of changes to stuff all the time until I feel that it's right. But it's just so we need it. Trust
Yeah.
me. If you want to do a solid for the music and for the country, it's a good book by a guy named Alfred Appel Jr. called Jazz Modernism.
Mm-hmm.
You should read that book.
Okay.
And just the way because he's not a musician, but the way he frames it in the context of the other art. Louis Armstrong is on the cover, but it also profiles Picasso and um, the Joyce. I think he was really originally a philosophy
Mm-hmm.
professor,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think, yeah, it's and the earliest jazz criticism is a guy named Roger Pryor Dodge,
Mm.
very early writer. He was very good. He was writing about Duke Ellington in the Bubba Miley period in the 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a field that could use some younger, very serious people in it.
Right, because I think for me, it's something that I always admire when I read people like Stanley Crouch or Mary Baraka, or people who seem to be very involved in the actual ecosystem, as you say, like going out, hanging out, listening to music, having opinions that they're like, this is my opinion. This is
Right.
what I'm going to say. And I'm informed because I went and I heard and I saw. And I always admire deeply the relationships that they had with musicians, even though obviously I wasn't there, but reading about the way they interacted, it was really a community in that way. It wasn't like I'm writing about you from a distance and this is what I think and I'm going to put it in a magazine and you're going to read it. It was like, hey, I saw your set, or I listened to your record and this is what I think it's good and this is what I don't. And that's something I really do hope can come back around. And
You got to bring it back around. It's not going to come back around. You have to bring it back around.
the effort, yeah.
You have to bring it. And that's the beauty of it. And if you bring it, it's going to come around. But if you
What do
don't
you
bring it, it might not come around.
So what do you think though is missing? Like what do you think is something that, you
It's just
know,
the interest.
okay.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Okay.
I, I think, you can bring it back.
I'm gonna try. I'm
Now,
gonna
now
try.
realize, of course, Stanley Crouch, he had a contentious relationship with a lot of people. He show up in the club and start critiquing people.
Right. I don't know that I'm gonna
I wouldn't recommend that. Some of the stuff he would do, no.
no, but
No.
even so, like having I admire the presence, right? Like people knew
Right.
who he was and they
Oh,
knew what
he
he
was
was
always
about.
out. He was always, and he was go to catch when people were sick. I never forget I was always on the road, but man, we're going to see George Shearing. He's in the hospital. We went and saw George Shearing. He was like that type of person. When somebody was sick or when they were hospitalized or they had problems, he was trying to always raise money for people. I mean, he did a lot that you didn't see. He was
Mm,
more famous for the fights he had with people and who he cussed out and all that kind of wild stuff he would do, which he did do.
yeah. But that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
like I guess like we said in the beginning, like you're learning to work with people, right? You're learning how to kind of
Right.
balance that. And some people might go in a direction that you wouldn't go in, but that doesn't mean that abandon that, you work together.
But you can't imagine like the genius of a guy like Stanley Krause just when you're talking to him. He
Mhm.
would start referencing the equestrian competition in the Olympics. Then he would go to that to talk about when the horses first appeared in South America and when they came up into the Midwest and why they called trains iron horses and what Charlie Parker. I mean, it was unbelievable. Some of the association he could do, the way he could connect one idea,
Mm,
everything from antiquity to Greece to Spain to African griots to oh man, you couldn't. It was even his writing and something, but his talking was more than that. He and
mm,
I literally talked every morning for 30 years. So,
wow.
then we started to fall out over politics. But I regret that now because he passed away, of course. But just the way he would laugh, me and him, we would just laugh about the crazies. He could make connections. He was a brilliant. You just take him and Phil Sharp, just the blessing the Lord put on me to know two people like that.
Right.
It's unbelievable education.
Absolutely. That kind of leads into one of the questions that was submitted to us. That's about education. I know that you, of course, have been a champion for education for all ages, not just children. A Jazz at Lincoln Center, if you, for anyone listening who isn't familiar, has so many resources, so many online master classes, so many write-ups, so sheet music, anything you can imagine. If you want to learn something, they can help you learn it. Um, and this person was curious kind of about how access to that information for young people affects them. But I was wanting to get maybe a bit more specific and ask you about what program that you've been a part of that you're maybe most proud of, or that you feel, really makes that kind of impact in terms of education.
Well, I'm proud of all the programs of jazz in the schools. I could name them, but for me personally, the thing I'm most not proud of, but that I've been blessed to do is meet musicians and people after gigs. Well, our vice president of education, I met him after a gig. He was just in college. So, just to meet younger people and hear them play and their mom and their daddy, if somebody is there to give them something good for them to go home and feel good about, make sure they respect their parents out all hours of the night to make sure they get educated. I think you put together 40 years of that kind of stuff and you just have so many experiences that are enriching. we're playing a gig at the University of Michigan. We're playing playing All Rise in Peace, and with big orchestra and jazz orchestra on stage. And before we played the first gig, a kid in the orchestra, I think he played bassoon, came to me with a picture of me with two little kids who were like, I don't know, 5 and 7 years old. And I was trying to hold them to get a picture. And their mama was in the picture action shot trying to grab the one that was falling out of my hands. And he showed me that picture and he pointed to the kid that was falling and said, "That's me." And
Wow.
he was in college. So, I mean, I've had so many things like that that bring tears to my eyes, It just happens, the emotion of it. And for me, it's just the cycle of it, to see my father spend his whole life teaching and, being in the community, setting up 15 chairs when only two people were going to come, or, just stuff that you really deal with if you really are in the community. And just to continue his work and his belief, it's, I'm proud of all the stuff that we do. So we're always trying to help bring people into the music, and with so many great young people work on our programs, and if a lot have come out of them. And I like all of them, to be honest with you. I like the Jazz Academy. I like essentially Ellington, of course. That's a special thing because all the high school kids play. They all play from memory now, and they have such warmth toward each other when they play. It's a kind of signature moment for us as an institution because everybody volunteers for it. And just to see a group of younger people clap for their band directors and parents with the type of intensity they do, it feels so good in a culture that has done as much as it could do to bring those people apart, to sell trash to younger people and to exploit their sexuality. So, which has been very successful. But to see a moment when it's just, yeah, we love y'all. You all did a lot for us. We wouldn't be here without you. It's just always been a highlight of my year, and over time, the highlight of my life, really.
Mm. Yeah, for anyone who also is not familiar with Essentially Ellington, it's a competition of high school big bands across the US, and they all come to New York City and compete. And to play what they're playing from memory is like difficult to do.
But they don't have to do it. They started
Right,
doing
but
that on their own. That's not
right.
part of our rules.
But it shows, I think, like you said, this kind of integrity towards the music, but also towards the practice and everything. And it's very, I mean, these are Ellington charts that have been transcribed by people that they're learning from memory, and or not learning, but like they read them and they memorize them, and create a fluency doing something that is so awesome and so challenging. And back to kind of the mythology that you've helped champion of Ellington, something that is brilliance, is American brilliance, is musical composition brilliance, and something that it's always great to see young people excited by.
Unbelievable. Yes, it's just to hear them play. It's uplifting. The one first band to really do it was a band conducted by a guy named Thera Memory. He's passed away. And they played a piece called The Tattooed Bride. And I don't know, The Tattooed Bride is like 12 minutes long. So we were talking, Todd Stoll, who's our vice president of education, we're talking about, will anybody play The Tattooed Bride? So, well, should we put this on? Nobody's going to play this. It's too hard to play. So it's, nah, man, somebody will play it. Let's put it on. They came and played it from memory. And then they learned 11 or 12 minutes of hard music like this from memory. And a lot of the kids in his band in high school, he had taught them since they were in elementary school. So the love they had for him and the way they played the music, we were all crying. All the judges, we couldn't help it. It was so emotional. And Jeff Hamilton is a great drummer, as always judges with me. He looked at me and he said, "Damn, man, nobody taught these kids how to read." So, it just, it's full of so many great things. Just, what can I say? So many great memories of it.
Yeah. Well, we're coming towards the end of our time. And I just have to say again, thank you so much. I feel so incredibly lucky to talk to you, especially ahead of the concert in Edinburgh, which I hope many people are able to join us at. And if you're not, and you're in the States or something, I highly recommend going to jazz.org and looking up where you can see the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Maybe if they're not even playing this piece, whatever they're playing is going to be 100% worth it to see. I've had the pleasure a few times in my life. I saw the Sesame Street celebration, which I love. That was very fun.
That was fun.
it was really fun. I mean, I've seen you guys also at NJPAC, just I think playing a selection
Right.
of things. I don't know that it was a specific um, piece at the time, but I was younger. But for anyone, they should absolutely go and check that out, and also look at your website for just a true archive of information about your career. I mean, anything you want to know is there. There's a map of everywhere you've gone. There's like these venues that don't exist anymore. I saw you played like a gig at Trumpets in 1980 something, and it had the old telephone number for the club, and I was like, this is
Thank you, Luigi.
it's deep. It's
Thank
really
you, Luigi.
amazing.
Luigi is my man, also a trumpet player. Once again, I just met him at a gig years ago.
Wow.
Look at Luigi. He went to start a fan club. He said, "Man, you're a fan club. Start a fan club." Then I might have been 30. I don't know.
Wow.
That's the
It's
great
amazing.
Luigi. Yep.
It I it's amazing. But anyway, I just wanted to also give a quick thank you to everyone at the Association of Martial Scholars, Nell, of course, who is the executive director, and Ann Sutton, who helped kind of organize this, and everyone also on your team and at Jazz at Lincoln Center for organizing and giving us this opportunity not only to talk to you, but also to come and see the show in just a few days. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm also happy to connect with any Marshals and Marshall alums, LinkedIn, social media, those kinds of things. But yes, thank you so much, Mr.
Hey,
Marshall.
it's been a pleasure.
Truly.
I will see you. We got to get you hooked up with this whole all of these younger musicians and people want to write about it. Hey, y'all got to make something happen. We need it.
Yeah, I will. I
We
want
need
to.
it.
I want.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Thank you.
Much respect. Yeah.
Thank
Love and
you.
respect. All right, y'all take care.
Bye.
All right.